The views, opinions, and content of this show are those of the host, guests, and callers. They do not necessarily reflect those of Local Matters Broadcasting, LLC, its owners, partners, affiliates, assigns, or heirs. Having said that, it's now time to say good morning, St. Johns County. Welcome to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging, better known in our community as the COA. We are your local nonprofit agency who for the past 50 years has been leading and advocating for the dignity, independence, health, and community involvement of older St. Johns County residents. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, broadcasting to you live from the studio of WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. Joining me this morning is one of the most kind, caring, compassionate people I know, Paulette Kozlowski. Paulette is the founder and manager of COA's Adult Daycare Center, known as the Sunshine Center, that was started in 2003 to provide therapeutic care for individuals with brain injuries and diseases, including Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. She is also the founder and director of COA's Community Caregiving Program, which provides education and support to caregivers throughout St. Johns County. And she is the author of the book, Guidance Through the Caregiving Journey into the World of Dementia, that is available on Amazon and at Noble retailers. Good morning, Paulette.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on this morning. And wow, thank you for that introduction.
Well, it is a well-deserved introduction. You have been with the COA for over 20 years now in the role that you have. And as you know, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year, COA serving St. Johns County. And so I thought for the first portion of our show, if you would be kind enough to kind of reminisce about the good old days when you first came to COA back in 2003 and tell our audience about that experience.
Okay. I came down to Florida in 1998, actually, to semi-retire. I'm a nurse. I'm a registered nurse and had experience for at least 25 years or so in all different types of areas of nursing. So when I came to beautiful Florida, St. Augustine, decided I'd try something different. So we opened a little dress shop on Hippolyta Street. After about 2.5 years or so, when you're a nurse, you're used to working with a lot of people, helping them in different ways. And although that was a great experience to get to know the city and even the mayor, Len Weeks was my landlord at the time, I kept getting a calling. And that calling said, was telling me to open an adult daycare, which I knew nothing about.
Okay, so a whole new adventure for you.
Whole new adventure. So I say that because other people, if you feel a calling, go for it. There's a meaning behind that. But anyway, I tried to was thinking of getting a grant, and that just didn't work out. I found out you needed to know too much about what you're going to do, the space, how many people you're going to hire, and so on. And so I kind of gave up on that, and within a few days, I opened a small newspaper, and there was a article. They were looking for someone to open an adult daycare center. At this time, it was through the NBA Florida Christian Center, the Our House Adult Daycare. So, of course, I went there, and sure enough, got hired. So that's how I started into the daycare business.
Okay, and so that was around 1998, or that was a little bit after that, after you had come?
Yeah, it was about 1999.
99, okay.
One happened. And then after that, we were running the daycare. I was running the daycare for about 3 years. It was flourishing. We were doing a great job. And suddenly the organization decided they were going to close all of their daycares throughout the whole United States and go into the home care business.
Okay.
So that's when I went over to the Council on Aging, mainly to find out how I could get the participants that were getting support through the Council on Aging at that time. If I opened my own adult daycare, how can I help them to continue with that support? lo and behold, that same day, the social worker I went to talk to introduced me to Brian, who was the assistant that time to Kathy Brown, the CEO at the time, heard my story, and Kathy was on vacation, so he said, just a minute. He walked into the other room and came back and said, I just talked to Kathy on the phone, and he said, if you do the paperwork, we'll give you the building, and you can do it. So, wow.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So, really, that came to fruition, the calling that you felt. That had to be a moment of, oh, wow, I see what the calling was all about.
Absolutely. I was just in shock and awe. I didn't expect that. So, in my mind, I feel I was adopted by the COA.
Okay.
But anyway, the COA, can't say enough about it, everybody there. Everyone's so caring and loving. I'm so honored to be a part of it. And so that's what we did. Within 3 months, we were up and running again. I did all of the paperwork those 3 months, and they were getting the building ready for us. Mm-hmm. We were in a double-wide trailer at the time. Right on the water. Right
okay, which is currently where River House is.
Absolutely,
so,
yes.
So in the beginning days, you met in a modular type building.
Yes.
Of where River House is located. So you had a beautiful view.
Beautiful.
Right? And so all of the participants that were with you prior to that, were they all able to come and be a part of it then?
Yes, all of the staff and participants. And the COA in those 3 months, what they did was they connected with, I believe it was Green Cove Springs, and they transported those families who couldn't, they needed their loved one. They were working, in other words, so they weren't able to keep their loved one at home if they didn't have a place for them during the day. So they transported them back and forth to that adult daycare until we were ready to reopen.
Oh, wow. So they transported them to Green Cove Springs, which that's a good little drive.
Yes.
Okay. And then until you were ready to open, and then they were able to come to ours.
Yes.
Okay.
So the whole thing was just magical. And it's very rare that you can start a program like that in 3 months. Thanks to ACA, they understood our situation and how emergent it was, and allowed us to move forward a lot faster than normal.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're coming up on our first commercial break at this time, so when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the good old days with Paulette Kozlowski. This is the COA radio show on 102.1 FM. And welcome back to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, joined today by Paulette Kozlowski, Founder and Manager of COA's Adult Daycare Center, the Sunshine Center, as well as our Community Caregiving Program. So, Paulette, before the commercial break, we were reminiscing about the good old days, and you told us how you came to COA and how you got the Sunshine Center started, and you were meeting in the modular home where the River House now sits, and then eventually moved into the current location right across the street at our 180 Marine Street location. Now, the Community Caregiving Program did not start at the same time. That started several years later?
Yes, that's true. We did have caregiver support groups that were going on. I was not managing that at the time. But when you take care of someone with dementia, it's important that you also take care of the caregiver, the main thing. In order for this to work out and the families to be able to remain in the home, the caregiver needs a break. And so I wanted to expand on that, and as a nurse educator, I felt it was important for the people with caregivers to realize why their loved one was going through a lot of different changes. So education on dementia is so important to help them understand and deal with these changes. And so we decided to go ahead and open a program designed especially for caregivers, a community caregiving program.
Well, I will say, my wife and I, and we've talked about this before, we took care of her parents for about 3.5 years. Her dad had a brain aneurysm that left him paralyzed on the left side back in December of 2010. 6 months later, her mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. So taking care of my wife's father basically entailed feeding him, bathing him, shaving him, clothing him, changing him, transporting him to medical appointments, managing his medication. It was basically like taking care of a 200-pound baby. Is what it comes down. And I say all that to say that it is exhausting being a caregiver. Now, my wife did most of it, but I helped as I could. But it was mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausting. And we were also raising our 2 children at the same time, one who was a preteen and one who was a teenager. So, we had her parents living with us, taking care of them, but also trying to raise our children. And to be honest with you, we did not have much support. And this was back home in West Virginia where we lived. And we didn't have much support. And, the sad part is some of the aides who would come in who were supposed to do like house cleaning or bathing my father-in-law, what have you. A lot of times they would come, they would do those things, but then they would just want to sit and talk to my wife, and which my wife sometimes enjoyed that and sometimes didn't. Really, she was needing a break. And often she felt like she was having to entertain the person that was there to provide her some respite. And so it is definitely something that is needed for our caregivers. And so if there's somebody out there that's tuning in today, and they're kind of in that situation, they're a caregiver, and they're exhausted, and especially somebody that's dealing with somebody that your specialty is, dementia. They can get that break by bringing their loved one to the Sunshine Center, and they can also get the support they need through the caregiver program. And so if you would, let's just kind of jump in and tell our listeners a little bit about the Sunshine Center, where it's located, how much it costs, that type of things, and then dive into the community caregiver program and who can be a part of that.
Sure. So the Sunshine Center is at 180 Marine Street in St. Augustine. We're right near the old city, kind of hidden back there.
It is, yes.
Marine Street. And we're in the main building of the COA. So it's an army green-colored building on your right if you're coming down Marine Street.
So secured facility.
Yes. So the adult daycare in itself, it is secured. We have about 3 different room areas where we switch around, and every hour we switch activities. So anyone coming to the Sunshine Center gets a well-rounded day. They'll have art and music and exercise, chair exercise. They get cognitive stimulation. You name it.
And they get nap time too, don't they?
They get a nap time.
Yeah, I keep wanting to
siesta.
sneak in there during my workday and take a nap with them. Yes.
And that's up to them. Not everyone is a napper. So we have activities for them as well, those that don't. But we do offer that after lunch. So we serve a continental breakfast, a full lunch, and 2:30 something else to eat and drink for them. We make sure they're well hydrated, well nourished, and having a good time and getting a lot of great stimulation. The charge is $15 per hour, with a 5-hour minimum. So that means they need to come at least 5 hours during the day. And we're open from 8:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Okay, that's great. And it's staffed by CNAs, so they're qualified individuals who are able to take care of them. And the individuals have to be able to use the bathroom on their own?
No.
No? Okay.
No. So that's the one thing with the adult daycare program. When they get to a point where they need assistance in the bathroom or just any kind of nursing observation, we provide that. Our CNAs will take them to, as well as nurses, will take them and help them with their toileting needs, as well as will monitor blood pressure and how they're doing health-wise. We do have a history of their medical background and what types of illnesses they might have besides dementia. And so we monitor that very closely as well.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with balance. Balance is a big deal. They do lose balance as this disease progresses, and so we're very conscientious about that as well.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I love that you do, and you even mention this in your book, you talk about the anxiety that somebody that has dementia when their caregiver leaves the room, or they're not able to be with their caregiver because they're so attached to this person. And so one of the things that I've heard you talk about doing is when somebody new comes to the center that is really struggling with that, you might have like a video of their caregiver talking to the person so that they can watch that and kind of helps them feel at ease being there for the first time until they get acquainted with their new surroundings.
Absolutely. People with short-term memory loss, they do, especially in a new place, have this separation anxiety. They feel like, I don't know where my loved one is. I'm left behind, those kind of things. But by videotaping the caregiver and showing their loved one this movie, it just eases their mind, and they'll say, "Oh, thank you." Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because they see that their loved one hasn't forgotten them, that they'll be back shortly, all of those things. It really helps that.
Well, when I was reading through your book and you're talking about that, and like you talk about you try to get the reader to think of a time when you were a kid and you were in that type of situation. And so I thought of a time when I was, for some reason, my older siblings thought it would be funny to leave me in the dressing room at the pool, the public pool. Uh-huh. And so I was like, I didn't know like where anybody was, and then I didn't know where my mom was, and so it was because my mom always took us to the pool, and it was just here I am 51 years old, mm-hmm. and that happened when I was like 5, and that was a very traumatic experience for me. So that's what came to mind when you said think of those times. And so really, and one of the things that you've taught me with dementia is a lot of times the brain reverts back to being like a child. And so it makes sense that if they're coming into a new place and they're so used to their caregiver and the caregiver is gone, that they feel that anxiety.
Absolutely. When you lose short-term memory, that's what happens. You lose more and more and more short-term memory. And so you're literally aging in reverse in your thoughts and then eventually in your abilities. And so that's why it's so important to compare someone with dementia to a younger child, because those are the experiences they're feeling, the same feelings. And so if you can think back on your own experiences, it gives you a better way of looking through their eyes and seeing what they're feeling.
Yeah, and that was a big eye-opener for me. So we have just a little bit of time before we go into our next commercial break. So real quick, the community caregiving program, that's available to any of the caregivers.
Yes.
And they can be involved, no charge to be involved with that, correct?
Correct. And you don't have to have your loved one in any of our COA programs to be involved in our community caregiving program to take advantage of it. You just need to give us a call, and we will listen to your problems and whatever your situation is and go from there and try to help you through that journey.
Yeah. And the best number to call is just our main number, 904-209-3700, and just when you hear the receptionist answer the phone, just ask for Paulette Kozlowski, and they'll get you connected, and you can talk to her about the Sunshine Center or Caregiver support, and we'll be back shortly after this commercial break. And welcome back to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm joined today by Paulette Kozlowski. We've been talking about the Sunshine Center and the community caregiving support program that we have. And coming in during the commercial break to join us is Mr. Steve Adzima. And he is someone who benefited from both our Sunshine Center and the community caregiving program. His late wife, Phyllis, benefited from the Sunshine Center, while he benefited from the community caregiving program. He's also the author of the book, Caregiving with Laughter, A Husband's Perspective, which is available on Amazon. Steve, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, we appreciate you coming on just to be a voice to our listeners, to talk about what it was like for you to experience the wonderful support of Paulette and her staff through the Sunshine Center and the Community Caregiver support. So to begin with, your wife was involved with our Integrative Memory Enhancement Program for a while before she got into the Sunshine Center. Is that correct?
That is correct. She was in there for many years. That's where it all started. It also gave a break to whoever the loved one is who's doing the daycare, care
right.
on a daily basis. And so it did give a little bit of a break, and she was able to mingle with other people in there. So it was really good, and it was educational for her somewhat, whatever they could present, whatever kind of spelling of words, and they worked on like that. So it was very beneficial, and she attended that many years. And then...
And then eventually
once you get to a certain point, they don't allow you to be there. You need to have some extra care. At that point, then we moved over to the Sunshine Adult Daycare, and they have a lot of little programs there. I don't know what you and Paulette had talked about, but they do everything there. They always have a little theme. They have stuff on TV, that you can watch their little programming, and there's extra care there. They need to go to the bathroom. There's somebody there. There's always a nurse on hand and nurses' aides, and always something nice going on there for them.
And so when you consider the caregiver support program that you got to be a part of, how was that helpful to you?
Well, Paulette will probably tell you that I'm probably the longest attendee to that class, and it was... that was a great place to go before the virus came through. It was a day. It was twice a month, which I've always encouraged her to bring it back instead of doing the Zoom, because I'm not a Zoom person. I don't have that capability, and I don't want that capability. But now she does have it in person on the third Thursday, 1 to 3, and I encourage people definitely to go there. And I run into people all the time, because Paulette and I talk on occasion, but for some reason I run into people that need some help sometimes, and I always recommend going there. And it gives an opportunity for you to talk back and forth, face-to-face, in person, and it's a great to exchange like that, because you can help some experience that you might have had that they are just going through now. I mean, I could give you many examples, but it's just a good way for people to kind of adjust, maybe get a little laugh. I always try to make somebody laugh there, one way or another.
Well, I assume that
some of them, but
the way that Paulette is smiling over there, I'm thinking that she found you humorous on many occasions while you're in that group.
Absolutely.
One way or another, whether it's good or it's bad. But I do want to say one thing, and it just happened yesterday.
Okay.
And a woman had actually read my book. She found it on Amazon.
Wonderful. And
it ended up being, and she looked to see where I came from and everything, and she found out it was St. Augustine, and she lives on the beach. But she was having a problem with her family. They have some medical problems and everything. And the one, after talking to her, she had not heard about, she just started looking into things, and then just heard about, the Council on Aging. So I was able to direct her to where it might be helpful to bring her loved one into the Sunshine Center and to go to the adult daycare. I also recommended her to go to the memory enhancement. And I told her if she would like to attend the caregiving class that Paulette runs, I told her I would, let me know if she's going to go, and I'll even meet her there. So I'm always, anything comes up from anybody who needs some help, I'm always kind of pushing them in that way, because you guys offer so much. You really do. And Paulette runs a super class. She knows how we all feel about her. She's our leader, kind of, I guess you could say. But I don't want to bring up my old friend Tim, but we consider Paulette to be the tops.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, we certainly appreciate, your advertising what Paulette does and what COA does by word of mouth. I mean, that's really a great testament to the work that Paulette does and how COA influences the community. So we certainly appreciate you doing that. And when you think back on your time taking care of your wife, what was maybe some of the most difficult struggles that you had to face?
The main difficulty was, as she lost, it was 15 years of Alzheimer's. Okay, and she stayed with me the whole time. I never had to put her into a nursing home or anything, as Paulette knows.
Right.
I took care of her on a daily basis, and that's what I did. The hardest thing wasn't so much a hard thing for me, because I always try to, as silly as it is, I always try to find some laughter in everything that I did, and so I made everything as possible as normal for her in every day, in every way, and I make food that I knew she would eat, or hopefully she would eat, or it got to the course as the time went on, I had to feed her, but the hardest thing was every day, there would be something lost, something she couldn't do, something she couldn't remember. And to be able to go and console her saying, hey, honey, listen, my job is what? And she'd always try to remember, but the story was, my job was to fill in the blanks. So when she lost something, I would pick it up. And you could always just put your arm around her and just let her cry a little bit. And then she, kind of bring her back a little bit, and then she'd be happier. Sometimes that was hard, and I'll give you one example. I took her over to Volano Beach for a nice time at the pier, and on the way back, she said, I don't know where to go. I don't have anywhere to go. And she started getting upset. She forgot who I was. She forgot where she was going. She just was lost, and she was real upset. And I just had to pull her off the side of the rope, put my arm around her, explain who I was, where we were going. So those times are hard times when you have to deal with those particular things. There's always kind of a lot of hard times, but when they're kind of lost, and they're scared, you have to console them and let them know, hey, I'm here. I'll always be here. I'll always take care of you, and move on home. But I thought we wanted to make this a little joyful here in celebration, so I'm going to move along from there.
Well, we're going to head into our next commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more in our final segment with Steve and Paulette. This is the COA Radio Show, 102.1 FM. All right, welcome back to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging. I'm Program Director for COA, Brian Robinson, also joined by Paulette Kozlowski, Manager of our Sunshine Center Community Caregiver Support Program, and also joining us is Steve Adzima. And before we went to the break, we were talking about Steve's experience with his late wife Phyllis being part of the Sunshine Center and his experience in the Community Caregiver Support Program. And while we were off the air, Steve is wearing his USMC shirt, and so he is a veteran. And so we were talking about veterans and how they can come to the Sunshine Center, and the Veteran Administration would pay for it. Paulette, you talk more about that if you would.
So the Sunshine Center is VA approved, and what that means is that if you are a veteran or your loved one's a veteran, and you have gone through and have a VA medical doctor, a primary care, you can let them know that you're interested in having your loved one come to the adult daycare. And if it's approved through the social worker, then the VA will cover the cost for an adult daycare.
Okay. And the other thing to mention is, well, a couple other options is private pay.
Yes.
So somebody can pay privately.
Correct.
And that would get them in there the quickest.
Yes.
Right. And then also through our federal and state funding programs that we have. Now, that's a longer wait time because they have to go through Elder Source and then get on a wait list. And then, it takes time to get off that wait list before they can actually get in the program. But if they're able to do that and they qualify, then that's no cost to them to be a part of that. So a couple options, no cost options, would be through the VA and through Elder Source, and
Correct.
then, but if you are financially able, you can private pay and get in a lot sooner.
Yes, and we don't want to forget about the United Way. Thank goodness for the United Way. They do give us a certain amount of money to help for those that are on the wait list, and they don't want to wait till their number comes up, so to speak. So sometimes we can get them in at least one day a week through the United Way.
Yes, very, very, very thankful for the United Way and the grant money that they provide to us that we can use for scholarships for folks to come in, like you said, while they're on that wait list. So,
yes.
very thankful for that. One of the things I want to mention is we do have an email where people can send their questions or comments. That's radio@coasjc.org. So if you have questions or comments about today's show, you can send those through the email at radio@coasjc.org. And we have a faithful listener called Bob C. We never give the last name on air. And he wrote this. He said, I have known Miss Paulette for very many years. And it has been a blessed experience to spend time with such a beautiful lady whose name was Jeanette. So apparently, Jeanette was your mom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So apparently, Bob C. knew your mom and said that he goes on to say Paulette's mom was an angel and is truly missed. She passed away last year, was it?
Yes. I took care of my mother. I was a caregiver myself and took care of my mother for 3 years. I had her, was fortunate enough to have her with me. And she came to the COA during the time while I was working as well. She came half day. My husband's at home. He works from home, so I was fortunate enough to have him watching over her while I was working the other half of the day.
So when she came, did she go to the Coastal Community Center, or was she a part of the Sunshine Center?
She started off coming to the regular Coastal Community Center. She didn't have show signs of dementia until her last year, so she was 93 when she started to have the vascular dementia.
Well, we certainly don't have time on today's show to talk about all the different types of dementia.
Right.
But I think it's important for our listeners to know that there are a variety of dementia diagnoses out there, and that is something that that is okay. Like it doesn't matter really what the diagnosis is. They can come and talk to you, and you can see if they qualify for the Sunshine Center.
And any type of brain disorder. So it doesn't have to be dementia. We talked earlier about strokes, any type of a brain disorder, or someone needing needing socialization, but also needing a nurse to kind of watch over them. The Sunshine Center is open for all people with any type of disability.
And then is it available to anybody like in a short-term instance? Like let's say somebody's like just coming out of the hospital and their loved one doesn't really want them to go home yet. Could they come to the Sunshine Center for a temporary stay if they're able to private pay?
Well, we only are open from 8:30 to 4, so we're not like a 24-hour care facility. And because we are licensed by the state, there is paperwork that needs to be filled out before we can admit anyone to the adult daycare program. We do encourage them to come for a pre-admission interview and see if they like it. We do have a few people that have signed up and did use it temporarily but want to be on hold and then just come maybe once a month or so on. But we prefer, and they do better, if they have at least 1 day a week, 1 to 2 days, that they come on a regular basis.
Okay. And so somebody out there that's like desperate need of some respite, I mean, and they can just afford to have their loved one come once a month, that would be possible?
Yes, that is possible.
Okay. All right, great. So what I wanted to do is just kind of one of the things that we do is we do surveys. And Steve, you're looking at me with the comment.
Yeah, because I have something else I want to say.
Yeah, please
before
do.
You turn me out here. Turn me out to pasture. I wanted to say that the memory enhancement it's for anybody. You know, I encourage them to come in here, but whether, a lot of times a veteran will have a problem or something, but they can come in with the loved one or the one who's taking care of them and sit in for a day with them to see if they're going to adjust to it, if they're going to like it. There's been a number of them who don't want to be dropped off and go in, but if you come in with a loved one and you sit there for that few hours, however many you want to sit there, they adjust and they say, well, man, maybe this is okay. Then they'll be able to come back and they'll come back on their own. But just so people know that you can come in and spend that period of time with them initially to see if they're being a good adjustment. It's important for people to understand it.
Sure, and both programs offer that, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's a very nice thing, especially as, we were talking before about, they're so accustomed to their caregiver being in sight.
Yes.
And once their caregiver's out of sight, then that's when the anxiety kicks in. And So that's a great thing that we offer there. I just wanted to read some of the comments that you've received recently from, we every quarter we have to do some surveys of those who are, participants in the Sunshine Center, their caregivers.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought it'd just be great to read just some of these. And let me pull one that I can, some of these are handwritten, so I'm not able to read the writing. So let me just pull out one that I can definitely read. It says, the Sunshine Center has been making an enormous difference in both of our lives in a positive manner it makes it really hard to explain. My husband has been attending the program designed to improve quality of life for dementia people. He has been involved in many fun and creative activities with other participants. Knowing that my husband is safe and taken care of at the ADC Center, our Sunshine Center, is particularly important to me, so I could plan my time and schedule my health appointments or give me time off to recharge. The ADC has provided me as a caregiver much needed respite time. We are giving special thanks and recognition to the Sunshine Center staff and volunteers for providing such tender, loving care to all the participants and the St. Augustine community. And so I think another thing as we're nearing the end of our time together is the help with the volunteers that you have in your program.
Oh, absolutely. Can't say enough for our volunteers, both in the Sunshine Center and throughout the Council on Aging. They are just amazing. We train those in the adult daycare program, all about dementia and all about the program itself. And wow, they just take off and help us out everywhere possible. It's another set of hands and eyes on for anything, but for the activities. If they're doing a craft, they have extra people helping them.
All right, and that is the end of our show today. Thank you both for being here. This is the COA Weekly Radio Show. We'll see you here next week as we talk with our next guest scheduled for next week.
Thank you.